I don't see the recording thing, but I just wanted to remind people that we are recording this
It is
session.
recording. It's recording.
Okay. So I just wanted to remind people and everyone that we are recording this session. So just wanted to give you a thumbs up again. Um, and it is my honor to introduce our special keynote speaker that's going to be sharing her passion for this work. So last month, Mars and I were invited to come and talk to the Counselors Network. And I sat through this amazing presentation before our presentation, in which not only did I have some time to pause and reflect on the work that I do, but also I walked out of there feeling refreshed. And it reminded me that throughout our days, we are rushed. I think we just had a presentation in which we talked about the work that you do in the community as a parent, as a community partner, as a staff. And so a lot of us that are in the work of giving our time, listening to others, serving others, we tend to put ourselves last because we actually our love languages are probably serving others. And so it's really hard for us to pause and give time to ourselves. So during that presentation, I really was reminded of the importance to continue to receive and replenish myself in order to give to others. So we invited Dr. Mamta Singhvi to come and share with us her passion for the work of wellness. And so the topic she has with us today is very important to you as a community servant, to you as a parent that's working now multiple jobs. Whatever your job is, you're also a teacher in the home right now. And to you, community partner that is always providing resources for our families. So Dr. Mamta Singhvi, she's a board certified radiation oncologist. I'm a true fan of her work because she does a lot of leadership work across our state, but also she travels internationally because she is a public health specialist and advocate, strong leader with many national nonprofit organizations, including the American Association of Physicians of Indian Origin, strong advocate for raising awareness for cancer. And I see a lot of pictures on Facebook on her. We have a common friend, Sonal Patel, is a friend of ours. And I kind of did a little stalking. I got this picture from Sonal's page. And I saw a lot of pictures of her work internationally serving kids and families. She is a blogger, so whether you love sports, vaccination, conversation, health, she does a lot of blogging to raise awareness in the community, and just passionate about health, marrying that health component from the Eastern society to our Western societies and practices. So I'm just honored to have her wealth of knowledge here with us. So take this time to listen and receive for you as she brings the conversation of you first, self-care 101. So thank you, Dr. Mamta.
Thank
Welcome.
you. Thank you so much.
I am going to be sharing the screen. Do you see the screen, Dr. Mamta?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so just let me know when to click next, and I'll be happy to hit next for you.
Absolutely. Can we go next, please?
Yes.
Awesome. So I just want to start by saying thank you. Thank you for that beautiful introduction, Marissa. I'm honored to see my picture also. Thank you. And Mars as well. Thank you for having me. Thank you everyone here for all that you do. You're truly teachers and community servants, community leaders, I think, are the most inspiring lot of people. So I'm truly humbled to be in your presence, and hopefully I can provide you with a few tips to be able to take care of yourself. So here we go. Thank you. And I love quotes. You'll see that kind of throughout the presentation. And this is one I wanted to set the tone with. So it is not selfish to love yourself, to take care of yourself, and to make your happiness a priority. It is absolutely necessary. And that's kind of what I hope, if anything you take from today is, I'm a yogi as well. So I'm a certified yoga teacher. And the kind of fundamental foundation of yoga, which comes from India, is selfishness, actually, which is very counterintuitive to what we're taught as kids and as we grow up, that you shouldn't think about yourself. But I think as natural empaths and givers, we need to listen to the opposite, which is selfishness purely just means marching to the beat of your own drum. And how do you march to the beat of your own drum if you don't even take the time to figure out what it is that you love, what it is that makes you feel inspired, what it is that gets you passionate to wake up every single morning. And so if each of us throughout the world can just, really focus on what it is that makes our heart sing, I truly think the world would be a better place. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Let's move on to the next slide, please. All right. Marissa did a very humbling job speaking about me, but I just wanted to give you a little bit more backdrop. So I grew up, born and raised, and very proud of the fact that I'm from the Inland Empire. I am a product of the public school system. So that is, again, I'm very humbled to be here speaking to all of you because my parents were immigrants, and that means they didn't really understand the system. No one had been through the school system. And so I relied really heavily on my teachers, on my counselors, on people like you who were advocates for immigrants and immigrant children. So again, I just want to say, as honored as Marissa says she is to have me, it's actually even more so from my end, because I couldn't have gotten to where I am today without all of you and what you do day in and day out. So props for that. I went on to UCLA, which is also, I'm very proud of, public school. And I got my bachelor's in arts, in history, actually. And then I got my medical degree from UCLA as well. And I actually decided to specialize in cancer care. So I'm an oncologist just because I was so inspired by people. I don't think humans have that much of a capacity to change unless we're truly prompted to. It is so difficult to change habits, lifelong habits at that. But something about cancer, the minute most people hear it, there's something that changes. Where it's like, oh my God, I need to start prioritizing what's important to me, who I want to surround myself with, what kind of work I want to do, what kind of service I want to provide to the world. And my kind of goal in life for myself, and when I talk to patients and I talk to people, is we don't have to wait for a life earth shattering diagnosis of cancer to truly live our best lives. We can start prioritizing what we need to do for ourselves now. And so that's why I wanted a cancer, because I was inspired by this moment where we have this decision of how do I live my life every single day. Marissa mentioned that I do a lot of international work. I figured that once I started traveling a lot, that I didn't have the skill set to be able to truly help people of different ethnic backgrounds, of different socioeconomic backgrounds. So I went back, glutton for education and learning. I went back to Harvard to get my master's in public health. And I mention all of these things because, one, I'm deeply proud of my education. But two is that even though I received so much formal education, 15 years of higher education, I still felt like something was really amiss in the way that I was taught to take care of people. And I think that is why I went back and started to learn more about meditation and diet and yoga and fitness, not just physical fitness, but mental, emotional, spiritual, psychological fitness. How do we treat people not just as symptoms, as disease, but really as holistic people who have, I mean, your soul is as important as your mind, is as important as your heart. And so these are the kinds of concepts that I bring to the table. And I hope that all of you kind of resonate with that, because I think there needs to be a paradigm shift in medicine and how we treat illness. So that's a little bit about me. If we can go to the next slide, please. Okay, so when I started residency, which is a 5-year residency, which is grueling. I mean, I'm sure you've seen things like Grey's Anatomy, where you're working 80 hours a week. You have no time for yourself, let alone anyone else in your life. Something I learned really quick. So when I started, I was super idealistic. I was young. I was, ready to heal the world, to take care of everyone, cure cancer. But I really quickly realized, and very, very much so humbled, when the phrase "charity begins at home" really hit hard. My mom used to say this to me all the time when I was a kid, as a teenager, because I tend to be, as I think all of you are, a giver. And she used to say this all the time, but it didn't quite resonate or make sense until I was in my first year of residency. And one of the staff actually members of my at UCLA, noticed that I was just looking really down and depressed every single day. And when she took me aside, and that moment will, forever stay with me. She said, "Honey, when you leave work, you need to truly leave work. When you leave this office, when you cannot take your patients with you, cannot take their issues with you. That is, your career is going to be really short, and your life is going to be really miserable if you do that." And I hope those sorts of messages resonate with you, because I do truly believe that healthcare workers, educators, community leaders, we all kind of are in the same boat, which is constantly putting other people first. And my kind of message to all of you is that there's a reason that when you're on a plane and you're about to take off, the stewardess says, "Put your mask on yourself before you do others." And people kind of laugh at that, like, "Oh, that's so selfish." But oh, no, no, I'm here to tell you that taking care of yourself first and foremost is the most important thing you can do. And everything else and everyone else must wait. And we live in a society that kind of makes you feel that rest and relaxation and massages and walks and time with friends, all of these things are an indulgence. But I'm here to tell you that that is absolutely not true. It is a prerequisite to do, again, what makes you happy and fills your cup in order to maintain your sanity and in order to maintain your sense of self, so that you can constantly be overflowing with love and compassion for others. And I hear this all the time from my patients, from my family, from myself. How do I find time for me? And I'm here to tell you it's the same thing as sleep and eating and going to the bathroom. It is absolutely, you just must do it. There is no excuse for that. And I don't mean to be kind of a taskmaster or heavy handed, but it's just something that you have to change in your mindset of, this is really critical. Next, and last thing I want to say here is that you can't model good behavior for your students, for your peers, for your communities until you start doing it for yourself. So I think that's something, you all are role models, and that is, I think, the biggest honor possible. Compassion fatigue, that is a very kind of buzzword in the medical profession right now, because you're seeing, record high depression amidst physicians, you're seeing record high suicide rates. And this is a phrase that I want to kind of flesh out a little bit. Um, and essentially just means that there's a cost to caring. Any person who is exposed to other stories of pain and suffering, naturally you start to take that on. And as you're doing that day in and day out, you start to lose your sense of self to those you serve. And I'm sure a lot of you have noticed that you kind of just blend into another person's story. And who gets it? It's exactly who this audience is: people who are perfectionists, people who are constantly giving, people who are caring and conscientious. And the goal of a few things I'm going to talk about today is that the negative coping skills that I highlighted there, because a risk factor for who gets that compassion fatigue are people who don't have the skill set to be able to have that awareness, to be like, "Oh, okay, I can notice that I'm starting to go down that rabbit hole. I can notice that I'm starting to go down kind of down that same pattern of not taking care of myself, not getting enough sleep, not eating well, because I'm so caught up in doing things for my family or my kids or my students or so on and so forth." So that is, and I want to point out something that I love is that Mother Teresa, the great saint who actually lived and served her most of her life in India, which is my home country, she actually made it mandatory for all of her sisters to take off one entire year every 4 to 5 years. And that was purely for the reason that she needed to have her army to take care of themselves so that they could come back refreshed and revitalized to be able to do the same for others. So remember that. And then the other thing I'm going to add here is, we talk a lot about empathy. And actually, I think Marissa or Mars mentioned that. And we talk about empathy as being, this really beautiful trait that is, you feel other people's stories. And I'm here to kind of tell you to maybe think about it a little bit different. When you start to really feel empathy for every single person you come across, or in my line of work, for every patient that I come across, it starts to be truly detrimental. When I sit there and I take on everyone's energy constantly by putting myself in everyone's shoes who walks through my office doors, it is not good for me. And so instead of empathy, if we can maybe think about it as compassion, as love, right? So we don't have to feel other people's pain. all we need to do, because I truly believe that we have infinite amount and infinite source of love and compassion. So all we have to do is keep giving that love and compassion. We don't have to take on their pain. We don't have to take on their suffering, because that is just not being good to ourselves. And first and foremost, if you believe in any sort of higher spirit, it's about loving yourself. So I wanted to add that as well. Next, please. Next slide, please. Thank you. Okay. Okay, burnout. So I'm not going to spend much time here, just we all know what burnout is. And it kind of is a progression of all of these things. When you start to feel compassion fatigue, when you're not taking care of yourself, everything that you wanted to do, the idealism that you started with, the wanting to help people and change the world in your own small way, you can no longer do it. And again, one of the main risk factors is because we do not know when to stop, how to be self-aware, and to say, hey, I need to pause and take some time for myself. And there's this real reluctance because we think we're super women and super men to be able to just power through, mow on through. And again, our society kind of keeps reiterating that it's weak to ask for help, it's weak to cry, it's weak to do all of these things that are actually very healing. So that is also something to please remember. Next slide, please. So I want to turn a little bit now to talk about what we can do, and then what I want to focus on for the next kind of 20-30 minutes, which is wellness. Wellness, which I loved the slide during that music break, which is also really fantastic. Wellness is defined, and there's a nuance here that I want you all to catch. Wellness is defined as a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being, not the absence of disease or infirmity. And what we tend to do, and I'm absolutely guilty because I come from the medical fraternity, is that we as doctors, we as nurses, we as healthcare providers only focus on your symptoms, only focus on the disease that you came in with. And we tend to forget that, hey, and that's really the confusion between health and healthcare. Healthcare is about treating whatever you come in with. Health is about making sure that you're happy, you're thriving, you're successful, you're enjoying your life, you're doing what you love. And those are two very, very different concepts that we need to understand, because wellness is about really living your best life. And I want to point out that despite the fact that America spends more on healthcare, much more on healthcare than any other country in the entire world, despite the fact that we as American citizens and American residents are honored to have the most access to information about how to eat best, how to sleep best, how to study best, how to work out best. We have more information today than we've ever had. Yet, notice this fact, even though we spend the most, even though we have the most information, we rank 26th in the world in terms of life expectancy, which is really, really, really quite bad. And you might wonder why that is the case. And I've had my own theories about this, but one of the things that I think is a reason behind this is everything that we do is about fear, right? You go to the doctor to get your mammogram or your pap smear, or you go to the doctor for your physical exam because you're scared. If I don't go, then I might have cancer and it won't be caught. Or if you start to adopt a diet, and that's not everyone, but this is, again, most people, the cultural kind of paradigm we live in is, if I start to eat well, right? If I cut out the cake and the ice cream and all of the chips, and I start to eat my veggies and my fruits, are you doing it because you're scared that if you don't, you'll get heart disease or you'll have, high blood pressure? Or are you doing it because you love your body, right? Those are very, very different ways of looking at the exact same thing. And when you start to look at everything, why do we have insurance, right? Whether it's life insurance or health insurance, or it's again this fear of, if I get sick or if I die, then I need to be protected. And this is no one's fault. This is, again, what we've kind of been conditioned to believe is everything's got to be COVID as well, right? I mean, I'm a doctor, I'm a public health official. It would be silly to not mention COVID. Everything is about fear. Oh my God, you got to do this. Put your mask on because you don't want to kill your grandma, right? Like all of these things are about making everyone really scared and afraid. And I'm here to tell you that that's just going to increase the stress. That's going to increase the stress hormones that are going to wreak havoc in your body. And if we can maybe, and also what that does is it causes a lot of guilt. So if suddenly you want to eat that piece of chocolate cake, or if you want to go out and party till 2 a.m. and dance and have a few drinks, you're not having fun doing it. In the back of your head is this voice saying, "Oh my God, I shouldn't be eating ice cream. Oh my God, why are you eating that? You're already so fat. Oh my God, your doctor told you that your blood pressure is high." And what I've seen over and over with the patients who come in with cancer who do best are those that are able to say, "Hey, yeah, I do smoke, but I still love myself through it. I do smoke and I want to change because I love my body and I want to be here and I want to be healthy and I want to be with my grandchildren." It's not because they're scared because their doctor told them you better or else. And so that, again, I spent a few more minutes and I wanted to on that because it's a really important mental shift that we all must make and take responsibility for, because society is just going to keep telling you the same stuff. Be scared, be afraid, do this because if you don't, you'll die. Right. And I want to change that kind of tone a little bit. And I also want to mention that stress is not a bad thing. Stress is actually a very critical thing that helps us keep your adrenaline, your cortisol. These are all hormones that keep you focused, that keep you concentrated, that keep you being able to complete a task that you started. Stress only becomes a problem when it's constant, when it's inappropriate, when it's triggered at the wrong times, and how you manage it is actually the most important thing, not whether it's there or not. So we're going to spend a few minutes coming up talking about how we can best do that. Next slide, please. Okay, so now hopefully I've convinced all of you that taking care of yourself is really, really critical. So let's talk a little bit about how we do that. I don't have that much time, so I'm going to try to rush through a little bit, not rush through, but kind of do my best to talk as broadly as I can. Next slide, please. And it's a little bit hard because when you're on Zoom, I can't really feel if people are feeling this or how you're reacting or if people are confused about anything. I'd love to take a few questions at the end of this talk if we have some time. I want to start with something that's actually really, really, really simple, but probably the most important thing that you can do for yourself, and that is movement. It is exercise alone that supports the spirits and keeps the mind in vigor. And what I want to say is that movement, again, we want to start to look at things in life not as chores, not as to-do lists. Oh God, now she's telling me I got to go to the gym. Oh God, now she's telling me that if I don't do this amount of exercise every single day, then I'll die and I'll get cancer. And that's not what I'm saying at all. I'm trying to encourage you to look at everything we talk about as like, oh, with curiosity, okay, how can I do this? How can I start to incorporate and integrate these things with joy and love and excitement and kind of adventure into my life? So, what I want to point out for both you and all your students, your children, the people you serve, is that 1 out of every 4 adults in this country is inactive, like literally just inactive. And 80% of all adolescents, which are likely the kind of the demographic, the age group that you work with, do not meet national guidelines of how much movement there needs to be on a daily basis. And what's interesting is that there have been a lot of studies about exercise as it compares to psychotherapy, as it compares to antidepressants, for adults with mild to moderate depression. And what we have found over and over again, and this is kind of mind blowing, so take note, is that exercise for people with mild to moderate depression is equivalent to antidepressant pills and to psychotherapy. So that's really, really powerful because, again, what I'm trying to encourage you to do is you don't need to go and listen to your doctor to tell you exactly what to do. Sure, you need to in some circumstances, and I'm not saying don't listen to your doctor, but I'm saying to take responsibility and autonomy back into your own hands. And that's really exciting that you don't have to necessarily rely on a pharmaceutical. You can just rely on your own ability, maybe, to be able to start incorporating some of these skills. So, what exercise does, why is it so powerful? It's because it improves mental health, it decreases inflammation. We've all heard about inflammation being the cause of everything from depression to obesity to heart disease to Alzheimer's. More and more, we're seeing it is all about inflammation in the body. And so, exercise, what it does is it decreases inflammation, it produces endorphins. We know that those feel good hormones in our body. It increases our vagal tone, which many of you may have heard that we have in our body. We have a sympathetic nervous system, which is fight or flight. And it's appropriate, but not all the time. It's appropriate, say, if a snake comes in front of you or a lion or tiger in front of you, right? But it's not appropriate to feel that fight or flight all the time, every single day. And then the other kind of half of that system is the parasympathetic system, which is about rest and relaxation. And our goal is to, as much as we can, be in that frame of mind of rest and relaxation. And exercise, movement is what is going to trigger the rest and relaxation system in our body to work overtime. Exercise improves attention focus. In fact, it's been seen to improve ADHD significantly, which a lot of the kids that you work with may be experiencing. Lack of movement, on the other hand, is the fourth leading risk factor for premature death. It kills 5 million people every single day. It's beneficial, therefore, for over 20 different health conditions. What I want to point out is that movement is not just about going out and running a marathon, it's about decreasing your sitting time. Studies have shown that if you sit for more than 6 hours a day, as opposed to less than 3 hours a day, you have a 40% greater risk of death. So, what I'm saying is not to scare you, but to say, hey, can you incorporate a walking desk or a standing desk? Or can you take breaks every 10 minutes to walk around the office, right? We're thankfully in COVID time, we're not sitting behind our cars in California traffic. But these are issues that we need to kind of pay attention to, is that how do I stand more? How do I walk more? And speaking of walking, the power of walking, do not underestimate the power of simple walking. I don't need you all to run, Ironman kind of, or be Iron men and women. Walking is really powerful. It's actually been shown to increase lifespan by a significant amount, as little as 4,000 steps a day, prevents dementia, prevents obesity. I mean, I'm coming from a research perspective, which this is randomized controlled trials showing us that this is proof. This is the highest degree of proof that movement works. The thing that I also want to point out is that green exercise. So, we, as you can all probably tell, are moving more and more away from sunlight, more and more away from being outside. And it's having real consequences to our mental health, to our physical health. It's been shown that physical activity in a natural environment is much better for mental health. In fact, there is an inverse relationship between green space exposure, which means just how much you're outside, and youth behavioral problems. So the less you are outside in nature, the more you're going to have ADHD, the more you're going to have bullying, the more you're going to have all of these issues that we're trying to control, right? The other thing I want to say is that exercise is a off-putting label to many. Again, we don't want to see it as a chore. We want to be able to make it more enjoyable and naturally integrate it into everyday life. So instead of calling it exercise, maybe calling it active living. How do you do that? You take the stairs, you park further away from the grocery store, you dance, and I do this all the time. I mean, it's kind of embarrassing to admit here, but during Mars's jazz break, I was dancing along, right? So these are the kinds of things you do. You take walks with your friends. Maybe when you're taking a walk, you listen to your podcast or to music. These are kind of ways to make it more enjoyable, to make it more sustainable, because we know that people who start exercise regimens often fall off the wagon. That is not what we want to do. We want to make this a part of everyday life indefinitely for the rest of your life. Again, this is very different. Oh, gardening. Gardening is also a way to kind of keep it active, but in a natural way. This sort of kind of listening to music, multitasking, I would say, listening to music, talking to a friend while you're walking is great and it has its place, but this is very different than what I would say is a Japanese, I guess, tradition called Shinrin Yoku, which is that last bullet point. And translated to English, it means forest bathing, but what it essentially means is the opposite of the constant multitasking that we're all asked to do. It really just means being mindful. And mindful, again, is one of those buzzwords that you hear everywhere. And all it means is focusing on today, not just today, but on this very moment. So while I'm giving this talk, I have 10 other things to do for the rest of the day, but can I keep coming back here and giving this my entire attention? So when you're walking, Instead of maybe one day you're listening to a podcast or to music, but another day maybe you try mindful walking, which is slow, which is deliberate, which is noticing the butterfly flit along, which is noticing your neighbor walking next to you, which is noticing, oh my god, the birds chirping, how beautiful is that? So those are the sorts of things that I would also say do an incredible job in increasing that relaxation mechanism in our body. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is something that I do every single day religiously. I'm a writer kind of by nature, but journaling is something that I do in this regard. And this is something that I want to really make clear why this works. So I'm talking here not about journaling in, so there's two different ways to journal or to keep a diary, right? One of them is Dear Diary. Today I woke up at 8 a.m. and I was already running late. I didn't know what to wear, and so I grabbed something out of my closet. I ran to get some breakfast. I ate a banana and some milk. So this is kind of fact diary writing, right? Like this is what I did. This is kind of dry. It has no real emotion. It has no feeling. And if that's what you do, that's great. There's a time and place for that. But what I'm talking about when I talk about journaling, because journaling has also been found to be one of the most powerful ways of healing. As you can see, I've written here, it improves physical and mental health in multiple sclerosis patients, in all kinds of Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, you name it, ADHD. It improves the same in nursing home residents, in kids, in prisoners, in rape victims. Why is it? And what kind of journaling am I talking about? I'm talking about expressive writing. So what I mean by that is that when I wake up, and I do this every day when I wake up, I'm sitting there basically taking an inventory of how I feel. Oh gosh, I woke up anxious today. Maybe I'm nervous about the fact that I'm going to be giving a Zoom presentation and I don't really know how I do with those because I can't resonate with the people. I can't feel their energy. That's how I feel. I'm a bit nervous. I feel a little bit anxious. My stomach is a little bit churny. I've already had to go to the bathroom, TMI. These are the sorts of things when you, if you're going to do it right now, might say, why do I feel so bored? Why is this girl, talking to me about things I already know? I feel like, or you might be like, oh, I don't take time for myself. Why don't I take time? Do you see the difference where it's about expressing your emotions, which we often can't do day to day? And so when we don't express our emotions, whether on a piece of paper or to a friend or to your mother or to your husband or wife, they start to build up. And that is what causes, again, a constant stress level that's now become baseline because we're not getting rid of it, or not processing it, or not doing anything to have cathartic moments. And so that blocked self expression is what produces the stress, is what produces the tension. But when you have a source, a resource to be able to write it out, speak it out, then invariably it frees us from suffering it in silence, right? And oftentimes what we write about is things that we can't speak about. You couldn't say like, oh my God, that girl was so annoying, because it's just not PC, right? But you could sit there and write it out. And so these are the sorts of things that I'm talking about. And I want to just maybe take 2 minutes, if you guys have a piece of paper or a laptop, to be able to spend just if you can go to the next slide, please. These are some tips that you can use. Don't get caught. And this is kind of, a lot of us tend to be perfectionists. And this is not about, submitting your journal diary entry to anyone else. This is not about perfect diction or grammar or punctuation. This is just about expressing your feelings and your emotions. Don't censor anything. Don't feel bad about what you wrote. And there's a few prompts there, and I just want to take maybe 2 minutes to write either a piece of paper that you're taking notes on, and just in silence, just to write for a little bit about how you're feeling at this exact moment. All right. I'm gonna pause there. And for some people, it comes naturally, and you're just going and going and going. For some people, we're not used to it. We're not used to expressing ourselves that way. We're not used to writing. Maybe everyone's on a laptop these days or on a cell phone. And all I would invite you guys to do, you ladies, you gentlemen, is to spend literally 10 minutes max every single morning or afternoon or night before you go to sleep, and just kind of like a mental dump. Just put out on that piece of paper. And I do this again every single day. I do this. I write and I write and I write. I can't even read my writing. And that's the point. You don't want to go back and read it, because the point is to just express it and it's done. It's out there and it's out of your system. And every single day I do this, and then I rip the piece of paper and throw it in the trash and never look at it again. And so this is again what the goal is to be able to, why is it beneficial? Why does it improve quality of life? It improves immunity, improves wound healing. I mean, these are real kind of health metrics. This is not kind of like, ooh, just kind of like, this is not touchy feely. I just want to write. This is, it will improve your health. Why does it do that? Because when you start to do this, you start to see patterns. You start to notice more things about yourself. You start to, kind of connect dots in your life that you maybe didn't see before. Oh, I see why that happened. Oh, I see that every single time I'm nervous, I have to go to the bathroom, or I start eating, or I start, drinking. These are the sorts of things you start to notice. And that's what I'm going to invite you all to do. If there's again any tip you take, is to move more a little bit, and then also to start writing. Next slide, please. We don't have that much longer, but I do want to share with you the story that to me is one of the most inspiring stories that I've ever heard in my life as a cancer physician. So this is the story of, I'm going to mispronounce the name, but a Greek gentleman. And the story is many decades ago, but it is a real, true story. This is a man who immigrated from Greece during right after World War II, when the country, United States, was open to immigrants from around the world. He moved here as a young, I think he was in his 20s, and he moved to the United States of America by himself, single, left all his family back home. And his goal was just to come here, see what this country was all about, and then move back. But he ended up, as the American dream often does to a lot of us, he ended up starting to work here as a painter. He eventually got married to a beautiful woman. They had 3 amazing children together. He bought a house, he bought a car. He truly lived the American dream. And he was doing that. He was living his best life, but he was also at the same time smoking 3 packs of cigarettes every single day, which was very commonplace back then. When we didn't know the risks. Smoking 3 cigarette packs a day. And by his early 60s, he was diagnosed with late stage lung cancer. And unfortunately, lung cancer, many of you may have friends or family members who have experienced it. Even to this day in 2020, let alone in 1960s, 70s, 80s, we just didn't have good treatments. It's a pretty rough disease. And so the doctors at that point told him, hey, you don't have many more months to live. We could give you all the kind of experimental drugs we have. But what we've noticed is it doesn't do well. So we're going to give you, say, 3 to 4 months. You can either take that treatment and maybe live 7 to 8 months, but we're going to leave it up to you. This gentleman kind of, he talked to his wife and he decided, hey, I've worked my rear end off all of these decades. I've, built a little bit of a fortune. I don't want to waste all of that money on treatment. I want to save it for my kids, save it for my wife. I'm not going to get treatment. Instead, I'm just going to move back to my small hometown in Greece. And that's what he did. Him and his wife decided to get no treatment. Again, that's the key here. No treatment, no chemotherapy, no radiation, no drugs. And he moved back to his small hometown in Greece. Once he got there, again, he was very weak. He was very sick. Slowly but surely, he started to do things that, those people back in Greece in a small hometown do every single day. He started to nap more. He started to be tended by his wife and his mother very lovingly, very nurtured. He was visited by all his small town childhood friends who would come over every single day. They'd play dominoes. And this is, again, true story. I'm not making this up. They'd play dominoes. They'd drink red wine together. And then as he got more strength, he started to say, hey, like, if I'm going to die, I want to go back. And he was religious as a kid. He used to go to church every single day. I want to go back to church. I stopped doing that for many decades. So every Sunday, he'd go back to church. Again, very, very, very weak, but, everyone would help him. He'd get to church every week. And then as he got a little bit stronger in that hometown of Greece, they garden a lot, and they tend their own vegetables and fruits. They incorporate that into their own diet. And so he thought, I might not live long enough to see the fruits of my labor, literally, no pun intended, but I will still plant a garden. Why not? And so he did that as well. And the kick point, which gave me goosebumps, which I hope will give you goosebumps as well, is that 35 years later, when this story was written, he was 100 years old and completely cancer-free. And the sentence, and I'm like kind of like palpitating here because it gets me so excited, is this. This is a quote from the story. "This man never went through chemotherapy, never took drugs, never sought any treatment of any sort. All he did was move back home." And to me, I mean, all of us are touched by cancer, right? I tend to see it a lot more than most people. But to me, I mean, I'm already tearing again. Of that story gives me real hope that it is actually all just up to us. Yeah, your doctor is there as your friend, your collaborator, as your supporter, as your cheerleader. Your family is there too. But what we really need to do is go back to the basics, go back to those things that really, again, make our heart sing and make us happy, truly happy. Simple, simplistic living. So I want to take it, please, to the next slide. And again, race through this. I'm sorry that we're running out of time, but this story came from a book called The Blue Zones. Many of you may have heard it. Blue zones are essentially places in this world that where people live the longest, right? And there's 5 around the world. I won't go into where they are, but one actually is in Greece. It's called Icaria, where this man was from. And one, actually, the only one in North America is in Loma Linda. So that's really exciting to me. And you can Google this, you can research it. Why do they live longer than, and they don't just live longer. This is a key distinction. They live longer, but they thrive longer too. They're not dependent on people. They don't have dementia. They're not handicapped. They're not, all of these things, they're actually going out and living until 100. They're enjoying life until they're 100. And again, a point that I want to make to you is that everyone talks about genetics. I'm here to tell you that only 25% of your life expectancy is dependent on genetics. 75% is dependent upon how you live your life. And that includes, again, your mental, emotional, spiritual, psychological perspective and health. Next slide, please. So I'm going to ask Marissa to send this to you, but I want to end, if you can just go to the next, because I want to leave at least 2-3 minutes too. I'm going to say this: the most powerful relationship you will ever have is a relationship you have with yourself. And the next slide, I think maybe there's one more. Okay, yes, so that's my email address. Please feel free to contact me, which is how I got in touch with Marissa. I am very embarrassed to say that I'm not tech savvy. I literally just started an Instagram account. I don't even have a picture up yet, but will at some point. So I'd love for you to join me there, so we can continue the conversation. That is, as my handle is right there. Facebook as well. Marissa, if we have 2 or 3 minutes, I'd love to take any sort of questions that may have come up. And thank you so much for your attention. This is as fun for me as anything else, and I hope it was for you too.
Thank you so much. Please join me in thanking and clapping for Dr. Mamta Sangvi. How am I saying this wrong?
So it's Mamta. That's my name is Mamta, and it actually means mother's love. And it means mother's love in my language, not as a mother's love, like as a noun, like, oh, she's, teacher's pet, mother's love. It actually means mother's love as the most unadulterated, purest form of love in the world. And so again, hopefully my message and mission to all of you is keep that love alive. That's what you guys are doing every day, day in and day out. And again, I'm truly humbled by the work that all of you are doing, because I wouldn't be where I am without people like you. So thank you.
You have the perfect name, Dr. Mamta Singvi. And we are truly honored to learn that you are from the Inland Empire. Thank you for giving back to our community and the love that you bring. It's really humbling. You made me cry through this presentation because I really
do that for myself too. I'm sorry.
It was very healing, and I learned so much. I know my colleagues through the chat, they keep on saying, thank you so much. Even though we're not in person, we feel your love, your passion, and we feel the healing that you bring through your message. In case you haven't gone to the doctor, we brought the doctor to you. And it's a true doctor of not only Western medicine, but Eastern spiritual mind, body, and soul healing medicine. So please do type any questions you have. We're honored to have her with us today this morning. So type any questions that you have, whether you're a parent experiencing stress, or you're just trying to learn new ways to help your child cope with stress. It is stressful. I have a 8-year-old and a 12-year-old, and my 12-year-old, the stress that I'm going through is helping her in a different stage of life that she is than my 8 years old. And so as a parent, I'm stressed. As a staff, that stress that we take every day, and trying to take time for ourselves without feeling the guilt, it is stressful on its own. So thank you so much for teaching me a lot on reflecting this morning. We do see some comments there. It says, Dr. Mamta, would you be able to do a presentation for our staff or parents? And this is from Damelia Romero. Which district are you from, Damelia?
Fontana Unified.
Well, we have your board member here in the house and your director of family and community engagement, Michael Garcia. So maybe you have some people that can advocate for that. Dr. Mamta, so that's a question. Would you be able to do this presentation to other districts and family groups or staff?
Absolutely. As long as I have time in my schedule, which is oftentimes a little bit crazy, please just feel free to shoot me an email and I will do everything I can. Again, this is where I get my energy from. And this is my goal, to be able to spread as much information and knowledge as possible. This is also, I think, really important from a physician perspective, as oftentimes we kind of sit on our high horse and tell people what to do. And even this whole mask wearing, lockdown, all of these things, we know it's common sense, but my goal as a physician is only to provide information. I'm here, blessed that I've spent so much of my life with amazing teachers around the world. My goal is to spread information, spread knowledge, and then trust that you have it within yourself as an individual to know what's best for you. Right, to be able to implement what makes sense to you and throw out the rest. So long story, yes, I'd be happy to try to do that. Please send me an email and
thank you.
We'll go from there. Thank you.
And she truly replies. I met her like you as a participant in a presentation. I emailed her and I said, would you please come and bring your passion for this holistic healing and wellness that our FEN network needs? And she said yes. So she replies. Somebody requested, can I see the last slide? I'm not sure if this is the slide that they wanted to see. So I went back one slide. This is the quote.
If I could ask you to send this to everyone or somehow, I don't know how, because there are some things that maybe I glazed over, but I do want to leave it on the last slide so that people can take down my email address.
Yes.
If you don't have time for questions, you can shoot me an email there.
And I'm looking to Almita Hernandez. I know she will email through our OMS, the PowerPoint later, and we'll have it. I think she already has the PowerPoint. So Almita will make sure that you get the link. So if you register through OMS, look out for that email and you'll get the PowerPoint in there. Thank you.
Another thing I would actually leave you with, and I'm here as long as you guys want if you have questions, but I take feedback extremely seriously. I said this to Marissa and Mars in the last presentation. I don't know if you guys do evaluations or whatnot, but I'm constantly, Marissa, you'll see that this is a kind of a different presentation than even last time. So I'm constantly editing, I'm constantly adding new things. If something resonated, please tell me. If it didn't resonate at all, please tell me. I truly take what you have to say seriously because I want to get better. So, and please take time out to do that. It would mean the world to me to fill out an evaluation.
Yes, we do have an evaluation. So make sure that you do take a screenshot of her information. We also have her information. So if you, for some reason, misplace it and you want to email us, all of us can provide you her contact information. And I want to personally thank you, Dr. Singhvi, because you really brought it. I believe in a divine intervention. And so you brought a different message, but I feel like you brought the message that we needed to hear this morning. Because all of us here in this community, we're parents, educators, community partners, and like you said, we're in the field of giving. And so that guilt, I can think of growing up in El Salvador and here, just the times that you're like, if you're feeling sad, you're just bored, go wash dishes. Like you don't have time to feel sad. And so there's a message that we hear constantly from society about how bad it is to acknowledge our feelings. But today you helped me reflect even on some, Mars earlier mentioned the cultural proficiency continuum and how that has been adjusted to reflect cultural proficiency. And one thing that I want to point out, we always say, let's walk on people's shoes. And we've heard that from our grandmothers, our grandfathers, our parents. I worked in the area of student assistance program, SAP, and there is actually a walk in your shoes website, right? And we constantly tell people walk in people's shoes, but that was a true shift for me today that I needed to hear. It's not walking in people's shoes and feeling that pain, but having compassion. And that's a long-lasting wellness way of teaching our kids and ourselves. Having compassion, it's a way of feeling, it's a way of helping, feeling somebody else's pain, but helping them through it without taking that pain ourselves and becoming that pain ourselves. So thank you, because personally, that was a growing area for me. I took so many notes, so thank you so much. But I do encourage, whether you're a parent or staff, that exercise to journal. Maybe we can help our families learn that strategy and encourage them to also practice it with their children at home. So thank you again. We cannot thank you enough. If we don't have any more questions, I'm going to go ahead and toss it back to my colleague, Mars.
Thank you, Marisa. I'm looking in the chat. Mamta, if you could see in there, you've got some fans today. You have changed, it looks like, the start, as I say, right, of a trajectory for many people that were on with us today, because your spiritual message, your medical message, your community message has resonated to many people in the chat. So please make sure you go into that chat and read some of those comments that are directed to you, because there's so many in there. You're amazing. Thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you. Do you mind if I say one last thing before I head out?
Absolutely not. Go ahead, please.
And I know all of you who are leaving, I take no offense to that. I know we're on a time crunch. Marissa, something you said really resonated with me, which was the guilt. And that's, again, something that I touched upon as I talked, but I want to make that point as clear as possible, is that for me, and this is all my humble opinion, every emotion is a beautiful emotion, from sadness to anger. Anger tells us something. As long as we're not acting on it, it's informing us to do something. Something's not right. I'm angry because of something. I don't want to take it out on anyone, or let alone myself, but I need to work with it. So I truly believe that every single emotion, good, bad, ugly, those are all just our labels. The one emotion, two emotions, I would say that I call secondary emotions. So I call happiness and joy and anger and sadness and frustration and confusion primary emotions. I call guilt and shame secondary emotions. Those, to me, are the most non-productive. There's no room for guilt and shame, because guilt and shame is something that we create within ourselves, whether it's our parents told us to feel that way or society told us to. And your story was very beautiful, is I feel guilty every time I'm sad, or every time I'm angry, or every time I'm tired and I can't serve someone else. And so leave you with that distinction. We don't have much time to flesh it out, but every emotion is beautiful, but the guilt and shame need to go, because there's no space for guilt or shame, right? So yeah, that is it.
Wow.
Thank you so much for all these beautiful comments. Thank you for your time, and please stay in touch.
Thank you so much. As we move forward in today's journey through our Family Engagement Network, everyone, I just want to remind you all that if you do have Twitter, here's our Twitter page. Later on, we'll be tweeting some of the work that Mamta talked about today, along with some of the things that we mentioned earlier in the morning. So please make sure that you follow us at SBCSS_FamEngage if you have a Twitter account, and connect us. We also have a Family Engagement Facebook group, and I will have Alma later share that with you in our email blast. And if you have anything in roundtable section, this is going to be this slide. Please put it in the chat right now because of time, and the chat will be saved. It is being recorded, and we will make sure that that's put out to folks in our Family Engagement Network page that we send out through Constant Contact. And last but not least, the evaluation is here. There is the network FIN meeting survey. we will share the link with you as well so that you can get feedback. Mamta had talked about she wants feedback. We really want your feedback because we want to make sure that when we bring people here, although I already know she was amazing and what you already made in the comments you made in the chat really solidified that she's amazing. But we still want to be able to have this in a chronological history through our survey, so it'll be here. And on behalf of our family engagement team, Marisa, myself, Alma, our director, Robin, who's an amazing leader. We always say this, and I know you've heard us say this time and time again, but we are fortunate to have a leader like Robin who allows us and gives us and empowers us. Remember today's message, empowers us to create the partnerships that we are doing right now with all of you through this work. And that's important too, from a cultural proficiency continuum perspective. If the organization isn't connected to the soul of your work, then sometimes there's a huge disconnect. And that's one of the things that I also talk to people about, that you might be culturally proficient or at least competent, and the organization is not. I can tell you right now that the organization that I work with San Bernardino County Superintendent of Schools, and in particular the LCAP department that we are from, is in that partnership mode. And so I just have to say that. So thank you to all. Marisa, anything else that I'm missing?
Just in the spirit of, Dr. Mamta's message, take good care of yourself. It's the month of giving thanks, but just don't take it a month. Give thanks to your, I believe in God, so I always give thanks for life and take care of my loved ones. And a big message from me is to take care of myself so I can continue to take care of my loved ones. So take care of yourselves and continue to love yourself. And just thank you for this partnership and for being with us today. Somebody said, thank you for the message today. And I believe in the higher power. So I think this message was meant for all of us. So thank you so much for your partnership, and just continue to take care of yourself as you serve the community.
Well, if there's no further questions, I didn't see anything on the chat for Roundtable. And if you do happen to have something, it doesn't end here. Please email myself, Marisa, or Alma the information. Like I said, in our next update, we'll make sure to include that information. If there's a flyer or anything that goes with it, please make sure. I see Alma with her Chisperito finger. So Alma, you got something to say?
Yes, Ana Perez from the Desert Mountain Children's Center just shared some flyers on the chat. They're PDF, so if you click on the flyers, you might be able to download it from there.
I do see them. Thank you for saying that. I didn't go up high enough. Before we end today, as Alma said, it looks like if you just click on them, you can download them to your computer. Alma's probably already downloaded them as well, I hope. And if she hasn't, I hope she does, and we can send those out through Constant Contact as well. Again, ladies and gentlemen, if there's no other comments or suggestions or things, thank you for spending time with us today. I did mention in the chat that you had a choice to be anywhere in the world today, and instead you chose to be with us, and we are honored to have you here today. I saw some of you that were working and you were still engaged and connecting with us, so we do appreciate you wholeheartedly. Marisa, anything else? Alma, for the good of the order?
Thank you for being here.
Happy Thanksgiving.
And last but not least, yes, it's Thanksgiving. Like I told you earlier, let's get through Thanksgiving before we put up the Christmas lights. That's a pet peeve of mine, as you can see. I get it. Some people are trying to bring, I was talking to a friend and they said, I'm just trying to bring happiness and spiritual happiness into my house right now because it's been such a bad year. And I'm like, I get it. But anyways, thank you all. And Jose, I see you. We love you. Thank you for your wonderful work in interpreting. Blessings to you and to your family. Have a good day, everybody.